So lead yourself through the body relaxation and then give yourself the instructions for the meditation on the breath. Or if you prefer to work with visualization of Chenrezig and do that, that's fine as well. And we'll have a short period of meditation now. So right now, throughout this universe, different sentient beings are having all sorts of different experiences. Some happiness, some incredible pain, some mass confusion. And all these beings are just like us, wanting happiness and not suffering. And there's really no good reason why we should consider our own happiness and our own suffering more important than theirs. So let's open our hearts to this universal experience of wanting happiness, not suffering, and yet misery comes unwanted. And even sometimes we get what we want and we're happy for a while and then it disappears. So seeing that all beings are like us this way, and also knowing that there's a remedy to this situation of continual frustration and disappointment, then let's aim for that state of actual freedom, actual liberation. And let's develop all the necessary qualities along the way so that we can be of the greatest benefit to all living beings. Not just seeking our own freedom, but everybody's. And so in that way, we generate the bodhicitta motivation. Okay, so yesterday we talked a bit about compassion as the wish for beings to be free of suffering and its causes. And it's not just the wish. We don't just sit there and say, well, I hope so. Okay, and may they. And, in the meantime, I'm going to, go on vacation at the beach. It's compassion is also the mind that wishes to engage and to do what we're capable of doing to be of benefit to others. Okay. So in different situations, we have different capabilities. Sometimes we lack the capability to be of great benefit in a situation, and that illustrates to us that, the areas where we need to improve our abilities. Sometimes we lack the skill. There's a medical emergency and we're not doctors. We want to help, but we don't know what to do. Then the best thing to do is call for a doctor. In other words, when we don't know how to help, get somebody there who can help. Okay? And sometimes we try and help and the other people aren't very receptive. And then we just accept the situation, keep the door open, and hope that later on, they'll come and we can do what we can to be of service. So we don't push our benefit on anybody, because if we do, then actually we're lacking compassion, and our compassion becomes our compassion, in quotes, becomes a cover-up for trying to get other people to do what we want them to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what you're doing is driving me crazy. And yeah, it's ruining your life too, but I'm just mad because it's driving me crazy. And I'm going to get you to change. Mm-hmm. And there, the focus is again on, on me. What I can't stand what they're doing, so I've got to fix them. Okay. So compassion is not being Mr. or Ms. Fix-It, jumping in and saving everybody because they can't take care of themselves. They're children, even though they're, 40, 50, 60 years old. They're children. I've got to rescue them. Yeah. So we got to take care not to have that kind of attitude. Okay, so then the next thing in the sadhana is taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, or the altruistic intention. That's on page 2 of your text of the sadhana. So this is the verse that we always chant. I'm sure you're quite familiar with it now. When you look at this verse, do you see any of the 6 recollections in it? Yeah, what do you see? Okay, generosity. Pardon? The 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Yeah. Yeah, the other far-reaching practices would include ethical conduct. Okay. So we're just missing the gods. Although you we could include them with the far-reaching attitude of the perfection of meditative stability, except in the six recollections, it's not seeing them so much as meditative states as which would be the perfection of meditative stability, but as realms that people get born into due to their deep states of concentration. And so birth in those realms is great as long as it lasts, but when the karma runs out, then you're back in samsara, in the desire realm and in more difficult rebirths again. So we kind of have 5 and a quarter,
You fall under all sentient beings?
Pardon?
You fall under to benefit all sentient beings. At the end of that.
Yeah.
They're there.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. So if you want to benefit all sentient beings, then you would include the celestial beings so that they would be there. So then we have all 6. Okay. So it's interesting, when you start to think about things, you see relationships that maybe you didn't think about before or didn't have before. So many of you have heard teachings on refuge, and I think it'll come up in the Q&A session as well. But I thought to read some poetry that some of the great masters have written, talking about the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, because when we take refuge, one of the factors we want to have is, trust in their ability to guide us. And that depends on knowing what their qualities are and how they can guide us. So I thought to read some verses from different Buddhist traditions. We have the Pali tradition, we have Tsongkhapa, our tradition, and some others. So I don't have verses from all the different traditions, but I thought it might be nice to give you something that you haven't heard before. Okay, so here are some verses about the 3 jewels that are chanted in the Pali tradition. Yeah. So the Buddha, the pure one, with ocean-deep compassion, who possesses the eye of wonderful stainless insight, the destroyer of worldly evil and defilement, with devoted heart I honor that awakened one. Yeah. The Dharma taught by the Master, like a lamp that illuminates the path, fruit, and deathless nirvana, untouched by the conditioned world and pointing the way beyond. With devoted heart, I honor that natural truth. The Sangha, the most fertile ground for cultivation, seers of true peace, awakened through the Sugata, all wavering subdued, Aryas with subtle wisdom. With devoted heart, I honor that Arya community. That's beautiful, isn't it? When we talk about Aryas, we're talking about the Sangha jewel, those who have realized the nature of reality directly. Yeah. So those are verses that they chant very often in Theravada monasteries. Then there's a sutra that they often teach called the Jewel Sutra, Ratana Sutra. And it's a story that takes place in ancient India, in Vesali, during the Buddha's life. And the city was having a triple catastrophe, okay? So there was a famine, there was plague, and there were spirits that were disturbing the tranquility of the city. So the people were really in distress, and they asked the Buddha, please come and help. So the Buddha came with the monastic community, the Sangha, and he taught this Ratana Sutra. Okay, and in it, it's called Ratana, which means jewel. Okay, so it discusses the qualities of the three jewels. And by the Buddha teaching this sutra, talking about the three jewels of refuge, and by the people in the town creating virtue through contemplating the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, then it changed the karma of all the people who lived in that town, and the triple catastrophe ceased. Yeah, and they reverted back to living peacefully. So I thought I'd read some of those verses that the Buddha recited, teaching the qualities of the triple gem to those people. Okay, so the first one is about the Buddha. So whatever treasure exists here or beyond, or whatever precious jewel is in the heavenly world, there is none comparable to the Tathagata. This precious jewel is in the Buddha. By this truth, may there be safety. So this is how he was blessing the town. So this is also what's called a statement of truth that Buddhas and great masters make from time to time when they say something that's true, and then they say, by the power of this truth, then may such and such auspicious event occur. Okay, so here in the case of Vasali, it's may there be safety for the people in the town from the famine, the spirit offenses, and the plague. So when it says whatever treasure exists here or beyond, or whatever precious jewel is in the heavenly world, it's talking about material wealth, material treasure, material jewels. And in our society, this is what we think is the epitome of success. This is how you measure your success, is by monetary things. It's one way, but it's a big way, okay? Because money then often gives you power and authority and all the other things with it. And here what the Buddha is saying is, it doesn't matter what treasure you have in our world, or even in all the other, where it says and beyond, it means in all the other realms, like in the celestial realms. No matter what kind of material wealth you have there, there's no treasure, there's no wealth that's comparable to the qualities of a Tathagata, to the qualities of a Buddha. Okay. The idea being that when we have transformed our minds and become a fully awakened one, then poverty is no problem to us. Yeah, poverty is a problem when, and causes suffering when we have a lot of clinging and a lot of attachment, and when we're born into a body like this that needs external food and at a certain temperature and has all these kinds of things to stay alive. When you're a Buddha, you're beyond having that kind of body. So even if you don't have the wealth for food and so on, it's not something that bothers you. And when you're a Buddha, you don't really care much about your status. Yeah, whatever they write about you in the newspaper, you don't sit around and watch the channels every day to see what the news is saying about you and if they're only saying good things, okay? Because you don't care. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice not to care about your reputation? Yeah. Bodhisattvas care about their reputation in the sense that they know that if they bungle things and have a bad reputation, that will impede their ability to be of benefit to others, because people won't trust them. But so they care about their reputation in that regard. so that it doesn't impede the benefit they can do for others. But they don't care about their reputation in terms for themselves of what other people think about them. Yeah. And I think it'd be so nice, don't you, to not care about what other people think about you, and to not worry about that, and to not plan what you say and what you do and what you wear, even, in order to have a good reputation among other people. Yeah. Because when we're attached to our reputation in that way, our mind has absolutely no freedom, because we're always looking outside, thinking, what do I need to have or do, or be, in order to get this accolade that I, emotionally need so much because I don't believe in myself. Yeah. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Always looking, what do other people think of me? Do they approve of me? Are they praising me? Do they talk well about me behind my back? What does my CV look like? Am I going to get into this college? Am I going to get this job? And out of attachment to reputation, yesterday we were talking about the 10 non-virtues, out of attachment to reputation, like, what do you do when you want to go apply for a job? Yeah. And you don't know what's actually required. Well, then you say, I'm a quick learner. Yeah. Okay. That means I don't know what in the world I'm doing. Yeah. But some people aren't satisfied with just saying I'm a quick learner. They say, oh, yeah, I've got that all down pat. Yeah. Until they're asked to come in and do a test. Yeah. And then the truth comes out. Yeah. So we lie and we deceive people to protect our reputation. And yet, what good does a reputation do for us? Does a reputation make you have a good reputation? Does that mean you have better health? Does that make you live longer? Does that make you a kinder person? Does it give you a peaceful death? Does it give you a good rebirth? Does it give you liberation or awakening? Yeah. How does having a good reputation benefit us? Yeah. And I think, my idea about this in asking myself these questions is when I am out of touch with myself and I don't know how to evaluate my own actions in a realistic way, seeing my good qualities, seeing my weaknesses, rejoicing in my virtues, purifying my negativities. When I can't do that in a balanced, honest way, then I look outside to other people to tell me if I'm worthwhile. And that's where reputation comes in. Yeah, because if people say nice things about me, then it must be that I'm a good person, because all those people couldn't be wrong. So we surround ourselves by the people who approve of us and think well of us. Yeah. And all the other people who don't, well, they're just nuts. Yeah. But so we look to other people to tell us that we're okay. And yet, inside, that doesn't quite meet the grade. We don't quite believe it. Yeah. Because really, feeling good about ourselves comes from becoming our own friend and being able to be honest, purify our mistakes, yeah, rejoice at our own good qualities. We don't, humility, or I should say, overcoming arrogance doesn't mean that all you do is trash yourself. Yeah. Oh, arrogance is an attitude. Yeah, you can trash yourself and still inside be quite arrogant. Yeah. So, what we're trying to do here is really, learn to evaluate ourselves in a realistic way. And in that way, be responsible for our lives. Yeah, be responsible for our choices. And then that frees us from always looking out and so much worry and anxiety. Yeah. And I think now with social media, people seem to have more worry and anxiety about their reputation than they did before. Do you think so? Yeah. Because you've got to put on the social media. I mean, you've got to look good. So you put all your successes and your beautiful pictures and accomplishments on the social media. Okay. You don't put pictures of what you look like when you first wake up in the morning. Yeah. You don't talk about, all the people who called you on your mistakes. Yeah, unless it's to criticize them. Okay. So we're constantly trying to create this image. And then, of course, if you say something in the slightly wrong way, then boy, everybody trashes you, and your Facebook page is filled with, how dare you say that kind of comments. Okay. So I think, this whole thing creating this image, this false image, we want to look good. And when we look at our friends' Facebook pages, which, by the way, none of us here have Facebook pages, so I'm just talking from what other people tell me. But when you look, their lives seem quite wonderful. And then you compare it to your life, where you see that the whole thing that is your life. And it doesn't compare to this beautiful image that your friends have created of what their lives are like. And then that adds more to the feeling of inadequacy and failure and so on. So it's all kind of made up garbage, basically. Yeah. As if what other people think of us means we are that. Yeah. When you're a parent, your kids think, you are God. Are you God? No, you're a regular human being who does the best they can. But the kids, your kids look at you as if you're everything. Yeah. So, what other people think, I don't know. As if that's all they have to do all day is ponder what they think about us. Yeah. When Nisaba, the Theravada monk that you saw, was here on Monday, he said to me, from all the e-news and the website, it looks like things are going really well at the Abbey. And I said, yeah, that's what we tell the world. And he said, well, I want to hear the real story. Yeah, because, he lives in a monastery. So he's quite aware that, monastics are ordinary human beings and you have the same things going on. Yeah. And, he's not going to lose faith or anything hearing. So I told him, this one and that one and the other one. And you should only know. Ooh. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, the precious jewels, all these precious things in the world are incomparable to the qualities of a fully awakened one. Yeah, both in terms of the Buddha, the Chenrezig that we can become, and the Buddha and the Chenrezig who we can take refuge in now, who can guide us to that goal. Okay, then here's the verse about the Dharma that he said in Vasali. The destruction, dispassion, deathless, and sublime, discovered by the sage of the Sakyas in Samadhi. There is nothing equal to that Dharma. This precious jewel is in the Dharma. By this truth, may there be safety. Okay, so the Dharma jewel consists of true cessations and true paths. True paths are the wisdom consciousnesses that know reality or that inform other consciousnesses. And they are what have the power to eradicate the defilements completely, which are the true cessations. The true cessation is the emptiness of a mind that has eradicated a certain portion of defilements. So there's actually many true cessations. The final one being nirvana, where, or in the case of our tradition, non-abiding nirvana, where all defilements have been eradicated. Okay, so the Dharma is, it said it's destruction, dispassion, deathless, and sublime. So it's destruction because craving, ignorance, anger, and attachment have been destroyed. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. It's dispassion because it's the absence of attachment and desire, greed, and lust, that mind that's never satisfied. It's deathless because when you've attained that state of mind, the true paths and true cessations, and especially nirvana, then rebirth in samsara under the force of afflictions and karma doesn't occur. So there's no ordinary kind of death. It's the deathless. And it is sublime because it's supreme, never-ending, and inexhaustible. So once you attain either the nirvana of an arhat or the non-abiding nirvana of a Buddha, you never fall back. Yeah, that is real security. Okay, your 401k, your pension plan, your kids, whatever you think is security in this world could change like that. Yeah. But the real security is having these realizations and the true cessations in our mind, because then our mind isn't influenced adversely by all these external things. Okay, so by the Buddha teaching that, by the people in the village contemplating it, then that triple catastrophe was eliminated from the town of Vasali. Yeah. So it's really actually a teaching in karma too, how the villages had created some collective karma, so karma that where they had done some kind of negativity together as a group, that was the cause for them experiencing the tragedy together as a group that they were currently experiencing at that time. And by the Buddha saying these verses in praise of the three jewels, and by the people in the town meditating on them and contemplating them and developing trust and faith in the three jewels, and by the virtue created in their mind and the way their minds were uplifted by taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, that was able to alter how the karma was ripening and cease that effect of the non-virtuous karma. Yeah. So, changing karma can be done. It's sometimes difficult. Yeah, you need extraordinary virtue to really change a situation like this. But that's the kind of virtue that they had. It's like once you break your leg, you can't unbreak it. But you can get really good medical treatment. Yeah. Okay. So changing the karma would be, like they had this, the negative karma causes you to break your leg. And then if you sometimes do pujas or meditations or practices like this, then you've already broken your leg, but you're creating that virtue can interfere with the karma that would cause more pain from having a broken leg and create the karma that would enable you to get good medical care. Okay? So, things can be changed in that way, which is why people often do special meditation and so on when, there's illness or, kind of conflict in a family or whatever. Okay. It doesn't always work because, sometimes it's not sufficient virtue. Sometimes the negative karma is too strong. You can't just snap your fingers and stop the effect. Or like when you have a broken leg, you can't unbreak it. So there's something that you're going to have to live with. Yeah. But there are ways to kind of ameliorate situations. And in thinking about it, we always think of changing the external situation. Okay? But I think sometimes by doing these practices, what is changing is our mental attitude towards the external situation. And when our mental attitude changes, then often the pain that we're experiencing changes. Okay? Because I'm sure we've all been in a situation. Like, for example, you can go on your ideal holiday and be totally miserable because you're quarreling with your companion. Okay? So you can have a good external situation, but then if your mind is all filled with anger and frustration and wanting revenge, then, your beautiful vacation, the external stuff is all there, but you're hardly having a beautiful vacation, are you? Because of the state of your mind. Whereas we can be in situations that are difficult, but if our mind is in a good space and we have a positive outlook, then we don't have to suffer in those situations. Okay. Venerable Chuyang was telling us about her life story the other day. And she left Tibet, walking over the Himalayas into India. And she was telling us that, it's difficult. They had to travel at night and hide during the daytime because the Chinese communist troops were around and could see them moving and so on. And she said there was a lot of difficulties and with the snow and trying to get food because they couldn't carry enough food for the whole trip and so on. But she said her mind was not unhappy because it was so fixed on getting to India and seeing His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that every step she took going in that direction was a step of happiness. And because she had that attitude, then the difficulties of the journey were just kind of some side thing that weren't really important. So this really shows that the state of our mind is the most important thing in any situation. Yeah? So when we have this kind of faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, then the mind is very happy. And and then even there's some difficulties, they're kind of incidental. Yeah? So the mind of faith is a very joyous mind. And this kind of faith in Buddhism comes from knowing the qualities of the three jewels, knowing the potential of our own mind. It isn't the blind faith that, somebody in the front of the room is telling you to believe in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, that the Buddha's a good guy, and, no, you're not believing, you're not having faith because somebody said you should, or even because you hear some fanciful stories, that, in the Tibetan tradition, well, in all the Buddhist traditions, there's lots of stories about magical things happening, and they're used to prove the qualities of the three jewels. For me personally, that isn't what makes me have faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, because the religion I grew up in had miracles too, and it's like the parting of the Red Sea. I mean, that's a pretty good one, isn't it? And the bush burning, spontaneously. I mean, so it's not miracles that impress me. That's not it. It's when you learn the Dharma and you practice it and you see how it changes your own life experience. You see the effect that the teachings have when you apply them to your own mind. You see the effect that they have. Yeah? And so that's where the faith comes. Yeah? And that kind of faith is much steadier. The faith that comes from just believing because somebody else told you to or threatened you if you didn't, that faith is not very stable because somebody else comes along and says the opposite, and then you'll believe them too. So I was going to say something else about this, but I think that's good enough. Yeah, so that's the Dharma. Yeah. Then here's the virtue in the Sangha. Okay, a minute. Oh, wait. There's another verse about the Dharma. The Supreme Buddha praised that purity that is called the uninterrupted concentration. There exists no equal to that concentration. This precious jewel is in the Dharma. By this truth, may there be safety. Okay, so it's saying here the Buddha praised the purity that is called the uninterrupted concentration. So in the Pali tradition, that refers to the supramundane Eightfold Path. In our tradition, it refers to the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. These two are not contradictory in any way at all. And, in the perfection vehicle, it would be defined the same as the supermundane Eightfold Path. But it's saying that that's called the uninterrupted concentration because it brings immediate results. Okay? So when you've realized emptiness, when you've developed all these qualities, then the result is there. Yeah, the transformation in your own mind has occurred. Okay, so there's no equal to that kind of concentration that is a true path that brings the true cessations. Yeah. And so by this truth, may there be safety. Then the Sangha jewel. So the 8 persons, the 4 pairs, praised by those at peace, disciples of the Tathagata, are worthy of offerings. What is given to them bears great fruit. This precious jewel is in the Sangha. By this truth, may there be safety. So here, when they talk about the 8 persons who are in 4 paths, they're talking about the hearers and solitary realizers' path to arhatship. So you have the approacher and abider in stream entry, approacher and abider in once returner, approacher and abider in non-returner, and approacher and abider in arhatship. And I won't go through all the things within that, but what it means is in all those stages, you are systematically and gradually eliminating different fetters. I've been around turkeys too long. The fetters until they have been eradicated in arhatship. Yeah. In the Mahayana tradition, then we would be praising the bodhisattvas who have great compassion extended to all living beings and who have traversed the 5 paths and 10 grounds of the bodhisattva path. Okay, but they're all disciples of the Tathagata, just different vehicles. Okay, so they're worthy of offerings. So here they're talking about the beings who have realizations, are worthy of offerings. And this is something that you find in all the Buddhist traditions, being encouraged to be generous, especially to the community of people who are practicing and who, the best community is the Sangha jewel, those who have that level of realizations. In the absence of knowing who actually is a Sangha jewel and who isn't, then, the practice is to give to monastics and monastic communities so that those people can continue to sustain their practice. And then they have their own responsibility in the deal, which is to teach and serve the public. So actually yesterday when we were doing the food offering, okay, so I was thinking when we were doing that everything, Chenrezig Hall was a building that was built here after, we set up the Abbey here. And the funds for Chenrezig Hall came from the universe, it came from other living beings. It didn't come from the people living here, yeah, and it came from hundreds and thousands of people internationally who believed in establishing the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in the West, and who felt that was important and had that value and practice generosity, according to their values. And so because of all that, there's this big building that everybody can use. Yeah. So it's not just a building for the Sangha, it's the Sangha opens the door, everybody uses it, okay? In the same way you all brought food to offer. Yeah, so you offer the food to the Sangha community, then the Sangha community shares it, and then we all have food to eat this week, okay? So it's, this practice of generosity, I think, is quite important for us in our individual practice and as communities too. So the Abbey also makes donations to other charities as a community. So Jay Rinpoche says, I bow my head to the chief of the Sakyas. The Sakyas, the clan that the Buddha was born into, whose body was formed by 10 million perfect virtues, whose speech fulfills the hopes of limitless beings, whose mind sees precisely all objects of knowledge. So that verse, you could unpack the meaning for a long time because it talks about the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Okay? So his body was formed by 10 million perfect virtues. Those of you who studied Nagarjuna's other texts, the Precious Garland, you'll remember that there was a huge section in there talking about the kinds of virtuous activities we do to create the cause for the Buddha's 32 signs and 80 marks, which are signs on the body of a fully awakened one. Okay? Whose speech fulfills the hope of limitless beings. Okay, so limitless beings, what is our hope? We're one of limitless beings. What is our deepest hope? Yeah, isn't it to abide in peace? Yeah, to not have problems, to have a sense of fulfillment and meaning and peace in our minds. Yeah, and to when we think, we usually say good health, but if you even think beyond that, wouldn't it be nice to not have a body that even gets old and sick and dies to start with? Okay, because good health is only a temporary thing. Yeah, we're all going to get old and sick and die. Okay, good health we have a little bit before in between the rest of it. Yeah, but what about not creating the causes to have this kind of body and instead to have a body of light, or to be able to make emanations so that we can be of great benefit to sentient beings? Okay, so that the Buddha's speech is what teaches us how to do that. Okay, and so that's the chief way that Buddhas benefit us, is through giving us the teaching. Because that, when we hear the teaching, then we have the power to change our own minds. Slowly. We're not going to change our minds like this. We're not going to be Buddhas by next Tuesday. Okay? Well, maybe some of you, but not me. Okay? But it takes a while. So we've got to be patient. But if we practice, we can see the change in our mind over time. And that gives us a lot of confidence that if we continue to practice, the state of our mind will continue to improve. Okay? And so we depend on the Buddha's teachings to learn how to do this. And so, they often talk about the 3 kinds of wisdom that comes from study, from thinking, and from meditation. So that first wisdom that comes from study, here we're really depending on our teachers. Yeah, we need people to teach us. You may say, well, I'll read a book, but a book was written by a human being. The teaching is still coming from a teacher. It's just coming in written form. Yeah. And I should say here, books are wonderful, videos are wonderful, but none of them can replace being with an actual human being in a situation like this. Yeah? Because let's face it, when you're here listening to teachings, you're with a group of people who are all doing that. You're seeing it live and you're paying attention because it's happening right now. If you're watching the video, you lean back in your chair, you put your feet up, you go out and make a cup of tea while the video's still going in one part that doesn't interest you so much. Yeah, you come back with your tea, then you go and make a snack, and and then in the middle you get tired, you turn the video off, you take a nap. Okay. So having teachings live is a different experience. Videos are good. If you can't have them live, definitely read a book and watch videos and listen to audio. But don't have the mind that says, well, it's so hard to drive to the center, the temple, or the monastery. It's a whole half an hour. And so I'll just stay home and I'll watch it on the video. Mm-mm. You don't get nearly as much out of it. Okay. And then whose speech sees precisely all, instead of objects of knowledge, it should be knowable objects. Okay, I have to remember to change this on the other computer. Okay, so the Buddha is omniscient and knows all objects that can be known. Okay. So that also is another reason when we see the qualities of the Buddha's speech, body, speech, and mind, another reason to take refuge and to trust. Okay, then there's some really beautiful verses that are by Maitri's Chita, who was an early Indian sage. And I think, if I'm not wrong, I think he started out as a non-Buddhist, and he was debating Aryadeva, and you just don't debate Aryadeva. Well, you debate Aryadeva and you learn how wrong you are. Okay, so they had this heated debate over, about the nature of reality for a period of time, and Aryadeva, won the debate. So Maitricita became a Buddhist. There's also some story he was in a library and saw a book, but I can't remember it. Anyway, so he became a Buddhist because he really saw the truth in the Buddhist teachings. And so this is poetry that he wrote after having had that experience. So he said, having brushed aside doubts about whether or not it could be done, of your own free will, you took this helpless world under your protection. You were kind without being asked. You were loving without reason. You were a friend to the stranger and a kinsman to those without kin. Okay, so really talking about how the Buddha was able to become what others needed, and in that way show them the path to awakening. Then he's also said about the Buddha, by not envying the superior, despising the inferior, or competing with equals, you attain preeminence in the world. You are devoted to virtues for their own sake, not for the karmic rewards that come from them. This is due to your right progress. Thus, due to your right progress, they have all come to completion within you. Okay, so this first verse, I think this one's a good one. By not envying the superior, despising the inferior, or competing with equals, you attain preeminence in the world. Yeah. What do? Yeah. We envy the superior. Okay. We despise the inferior. And we compete with equals. And do we attain preeminence? No. Okay. So this whole thing of envy, looking jealousy, looking down on other people out of pride and arrogance, competition, all this is coming from our own feeling of insecurity and our attachment to reputation. Isn't it? Yeah, we're jealous of people who are better than us because we want to be known as somebody with those qualities. We don't always care whether we have those qualities. We just want to be known as somebody who has them. Okay? That's like somebody once said to me, I want to appear to be responsible, but I don't really want to be responsible. Okay, so it's the same thing with us, isn't it? May I appear to have those good qualities, but really I don't want to do the work to gain them. Okay, despising the inferior, that's one way that makes us feel big, is if we can look down on other people and yeah, I know more than they do. I am younger and more attractive. I am more athletic. I am a better artist, musician, mathematician, whatever it is. I know this better than other people do. I can make better bonsai trees. I can bowl better. I know how to change the tire on a car better than anybody else. Certainly better than me. I will give you credit for that. But, we, over the tiniest thing, we will look down on others because they aren't as good as we are. Yeah. And then we'll use that as justification to treat them as unfairly. Yeah. I mean, what all the isms that we have, all our prejudice and racism and genderism and ageism and, prejudice against immigrants and against different ethnic groups and about, gender and sexual orientation and religion and all of that is based on, looking down at other people. And we use that as our justification to then oppress other people who aren't like us. Because the people like us are the good ones, because I wouldn't be anything less than part of the best group. Why? Because I am me. I mean, this is our whole rationale. Yeah, whatever I believe is right. Even if I change my mind and believe the opposite tomorrow, that is right. And what I believed today was also right. Why? Because I would never believe anything that is wrong. I am always right. Yeah. I mean, this is the nonsense in our mind that we use to justify mistreating other sentient beings. And in the process of mistreating other sentient beings, what do? We create the causes for ourselves to be born in a lower realm. Yeah? So for the sake of alleviating our own insecurity about our own reputation, we create the karma so that we'll experience a lot of pain in the future. When you think about it that way, any any kind of prejudice we have, it harms others, but it also harms us. And we begin to see that harming others and harming ourselves comes to the same point, and benefiting others and benefiting ourselves comes to the same point. Yeah. We usually think, I'll benefit me and then harm others. Yeah. But karma doesn't work that way. Yeah. When out of self-centeredness, we just take care of our own benefit and we put others down, we ignore their experience, we inflict pain on them, because we resent something about them, then we're harming them directly, we're harming ourselves in terms of our future experience. Yeah. So this kind of arrogance, it doesn't serve anybody. Okay, so the Buddha didn't get all involved in all that stuff, and that's how he attained preeminence. Yeah? Because of, not having jealousy and competition and arrogance. Yeah. And when you think about it, those three things, when you have them in your mind, is your mind peaceful and relaxed? Is your mind happy? When you are jealous of other people, for me, I know jealousy is an extremely painful emotion. Yeah, very painful. So when I'm jealous of somebody, who's suffering? Yeah? If I try and badmouth somebody else because I want other people to think I'm good, and I'm doing that out of a motivation of jealousy, who's suffering? Yeah, me. So, yeah, this is one of the big things I think we really have to look out for, because these negative emotions inflict pain on us right now in the present. Yeah. When we look down, when we're arrogant, we look down on other people. We think we're happy. Oh, I'm so good. Look at them. Yeah. I'm better at gardening than you are. Yeah. I'm better at whatever it is we're arrogant about. Yeah. So we think we're building ourselves up. What's the real feeling inside of our mind when we're full of arrogance? Fear, isn't it? Because how in the world are we going to maintain that superior state? And then they may catch up with us, and then what'll we do? I was thinking the other day, good example, when I was in 8th grade, I used to play flute, okay? So my parents wanted me to develop these different, so I wanted to play drums because then I thought all I had to do was this, but they wouldn't let me do that. So I played flute. So in our music, in our band and our orchestra, we were seated in order of how well we played, okay? I see some nodding heads. Some of you went through this too. And so you were placed in this order, but then when you were in a second place or third place or whatever, you could challenge the person who was directly ahead of you. And if your teacher saw that you played better than they did, then you took their seat. You switched seats and you moved up. Okay, so seventh grade. I was second flute, but I was behind Becky Beamer. And and I didn't mind being behind Becky because she was really good. And she was also very humble. And she was my friend. And I didn't feel in any way inferior, to Becky. But then in 8th grade, along came another girl who I can't remember her name, but she had kind of light blonde, reddish hair. And she was in 7th grade, and I was in 8th grade. And our music teacher, I can't remember his name either, but he was tall. And he put her in 2nd place after Becky, and then put me in 3rd place. But I was an 8th grader, and she was a 7th grader. My world was on fire with anger and jealousy. How could I be behind a 7th grader, when I'm a year older? Oh, this was just intolerable. So I went home, I practiced, and we could challenge on a specific tune, and then if he would also make us play other things too So I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and then I challenged her. I think her name might have been Susie. And I challenged her, and I played really well. Yeah, the piece. And she also played really well. And at the end of the piece, I stopped. At the end of the piece, she went back to the beginning and started to play again. And my teacher said, "You both played excellently, but she was better because there was, what's the bar called? The repeat sign. And so she started over to repeat it, and you didn't do that." This was just, I suffered so much from jealousy. Yeah, even though I was better than the people in 4th and 5th place, but they were 7th graders, so that didn't mean anything. I should have been better than them. Okay. Okay. So you see how our own mind causes suffering? Yeah. Now somebody's going to say, "But that was good. It motivated you to improve. Otherwise, you wouldn't have spent so much time practicing." Well, that's true, but I spent all that time practicing for the wrong reason. Yeah, my one verse of poetry that I remember from English was a T.S. Eliot thing that said, "To do the right thing, the last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right thing for the wrong reason." Yeah. It's the only thing I remember. Yeah. But that's exactly what I did. Yeah. So, that did me in. I still played flute in after I got to high school, but it wasn't the same. Though once I got to high school, I was back to 2nd. It was me and Becky again, because she was still in junior high. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so you were devoted to virtues. Oh, we're over time, aren't we? Well, let's just do this first. You were devoted to virtues for their own sake, not for the karmic rewards that come from them. Thus, due to your right progress, they have all come to completion within you. So the Buddha created virtue, and generated all these good qualities, not simply because he had faith in the law of karma and its effects. And, this was before he was the Buddha, and not just so that he would have a good rebirth, but he did it really out of bodhicitta with great compassion for all of us. So he did the right thing with the right reason, for the right reason, okay? And then there's one more verse. So this is Jai Rinpoche again. Here too, as I reflect on the Buddha's words, I think, blazing with the glory of noble signs and hollowed in a net of light rays, this teacher, in a voice of pristine melody, spoke thus in such a way. The instant such a reflection of the sage's form appears in my mind, it soothes me, just as the moon rays heal fever's pain. Okay, so just thinking of reflecting on the Buddha's quality and imagining the Buddha in front of him, he's saying that all the mental suffering he had ceased, at that moment. So in a similar way, when we visualize Chenrezig, just visualizing Chenrezig has a very peacemaking result on our own mind stream. You can try it in your meditation. Visualize Donald Trump and then visualize Chenrezig. Okay? And notice the different feelings that those two visualizations cause in you. Yeah? Or visualize Rambo and then visualize Chenrezig. Rambo's kind of old. Who's the latest one? I'm really out of tune. James Bond is old. Who is it now? Oh, visualize. How about LeBron James? Did I say his name right? LeBron James. Yeah. So visualize him. Yeah, and then visualize Chenrezig. Yeah. Now James does some good things. He uses his position to speak out about social injustice. But still, visualizing a basketball player is going to give you one feeling. You might start going like this. And visualizing Chenrezig, you might start going like this. Yeah. But, our mind responds to things. Or visualize Jeff Sessions. Yeah? And then visualize Chenrezig. Yeah? See the difference in how you feel. But when you say the refuge verse, you can also pause after you say it so that you can reflect on some of these things that we talked about today.